That is how most people are defeated. Not by failure, not by pain, not by difficult people, but by a mind that panics too quickly, reacts too easily, and believes every fearful thought that appears. One insult steals their peace. One delay destroys their patience. One mistake convinces them they are not good enough. One painful memory pulls them back into a past they can no longer change. And without realizing it, they become prisoners of their own thoughts. But a monk understands a truth that changes everything. The strongest person in the room is not the loudest. It is the one who remains calm while everyone else is losing control. Real power is not forcing the world to become peaceful. Real power is becoming so disciplined that the world's chaos can no longer enter your mind. Imagine reaching a place where criticism no longer shakes your confidence, where rejection no longer steals your self-worth, where fear no longer decides your future, where anger no longer controls your words, and where every storm becomes another opportunity to grow instead of another reason to break. That is the path of the monk. And today, you are about to learn how to train your mind to stay calm in every situation, no matter how difficult life becomes. If you are ready to become the calmest person in every storm, comment, "I choose calm." Lesson 1. Calmness is the highest form of strength. Most people spend their entire lives chasing power, but very few ever stop to ask themselves what real power actually is. They believe power is having more money than everyone else, more influence than everyone else, more followers, more success, or the ability to make other people fear them. But a monk looks at the world very differently. He understands that none of these things can make a person truly powerful, because they all depend on circumstances that can disappear overnight. Wealth can be lost, status can be taken away, beauty fades, fame changes with public opinion. Even the strongest body becomes weaker with time. If your strength depends on something the world can remove, then it was never real strength to begin with. Real strength begins the moment your inner world becomes stronger than your outer circumstances. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you allowed one person's words to change your entire day? How many nights have you lost sleep because someone disrespected you, misunderstood you, ignored your message, or failed to appreciate your efforts? How many times have you carried one painful conversation in your mind for weeks while the other person had already forgotten it? This is how the untrained mind suffers. It gives enormous power to things that should never have been allowed to control it. The monk understands that every emotional reaction is a choice, even when it does not feel like one. At first, this idea sounds impossible because emotions appear so quickly. Anger rises before you notice it. Fear enters before you can stop it. Anxiety tightens your chest before you even understand why. But through years of discipline, the monk discovers something extraordinary. He cannot always stop an emotion from arriving, but he can decide whether that emotion will become his master. There is a great difference between feeling anger and becoming anger. There is a great difference between feeling fear and obeying fear. There is a great difference between experiencing sadness and building a permanent home inside sadness. Most people never learn this difference. The moment an emotion appears, they immediately believe it, defend it, and act upon it. Their thoughts become their commands, and their emotions become their leaders. They do not realize they have handed over the keys of their lives to temporary feelings that change from hour to hour. The monk refuses to live this way. When anger visits, he welcomes it as a messenger, not as a king. He asks, "What is this emotion trying to teach me?" instead of asking, "How quickly can I react?" When fear appears, he does not run from it or surrender to it. He studies it with quiet awareness until he discovers that many fears lose their power the moment they are observed clearly. When disappointment enters his heart, he does not immediately call life unfair. Instead, he asks himself whether this moment is preparing him for wisdom he could never have learned through comfort. This is why calmness should never be mistaken for weakness. The world often celebrates people who react loudly. It praises those who always have the last word, who win every argument, who answer every insult, who refuse to let anything go. But the monk knows that reacting is easy. Remaining calm requires a level of mastery that most people never develop. Anyone can lose control. Anyone can shout. Anyone can seek revenge. Anyone can blame another person for the condition of their own heart. Very few people can remain peaceful while standing in the middle of chaos. Very few people can smile without hatred after being insulted. Very few people can continue walking their path while others are trying to pull them into unnecessary conflict. Look at the mountains. For thousands of years they have watched storms come and go. Violent winds have struck them. Heavy rain has fallen upon them. Snow has covered them. Lightning has crashed against them. Seasons have changed again and again. But the mountain does not chase the storm. The mountain does not argue with the storm. The mountain does not become the storm. It simply remains rooted in its own nature. This is exactly how the monk trains his mind. He understands that every emotional storm will eventually pass. Anger passes, fear passes, pain passes, joy passes, success passes, failure passes, praise passes, criticism passes. Nothing remains forever except the character you build while these experiences are passing through your life. Most people spend their energy trying to control the storm. The monk spends his energy becoming the mountain. Every morning he trains his awareness because he knows the world will eventually test it. Every moment of silence becomes preparation for a future argument. Every breath becomes preparation for future anxiety. Every act of discipline becomes preparation for future temptation. Every small decision to remain calm becomes another stone in the foundation of an unshakable mind. Many people think they need a different life to find peace. The monk understands that they need a different mind. A different job will not automatically remove anxiety. A different relationship will not automatically remove insecurity. A different house will not automatically remove restlessness. A different city will not automatically remove fear. Because wherever the mind goes, the person follows. If the mind remains chaotic, it will create chaos even in peaceful places. If the mind becomes disciplined, it will discover peace even in difficult places. This is why the greatest battle is never outside. It is always inside. Every single day your mind invites you to choose between reaction and awareness, between fear and courage, between comfort and discipline, between revenge and wisdom, between ego and humility. Every decision you make strengthens one of these paths. Whatever you practice repeatedly becomes the person you eventually become. If you practice reacting, reacting becomes your identity. If you practice worrying, worry becomes your habit. If you practice blaming, blame becomes your character. But if you practice calmness every single day, even in the smallest moments, something remarkable begins to happen. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotions become lighter, your words become wiser, your presence becomes stronger. People begin to notice that the same situations that disturb everyone else no longer disturb you in the same way. Not because life has become easier, but because your mind has become stronger. Never forget this truth. Life will always test your calmness before it rewards your discipline. It will place difficult people in your path. It will delay the things you desperately want. It will allow uncertainty to visit your future. It will invite fear to knock on the door of your heart. But every test carries the same hidden question. Will you react like the person you used to be? Or will you respond like the person you are training yourself to become? The answer to that question will shape your future far more than your circumstances ever could. Because the calmest person is not the one who has escaped every storm. The calmest person is the one who has trained his mind so deeply that even the strongest storm cannot steal the peace he has built within. Lesson 2. The mind becomes calm the moment you stop fighting everything. One of the greatest reasons people lose their inner peace is because they spend their entire lives fighting reality. They fight what has already happened. They fight what other people think about them. They fight things they cannot control. They fight the passing of time. They fight the uncertainty of tomorrow. They fight every uncomfortable emotion that enters their heart. And after years of fighting everything around them, they wonder why they feel exhausted even when they have done nothing physically difficult. The monk understands that the greatest source of exhaustion is not the body, It is the mind constantly resisting life instead of learning how to move wisely through it. Look closely at your own thoughts during a difficult day. The situation itself may last only a few minutes, but the mind continues the battle for hours, days, sometimes even years. Someone speaks one painful sentence, and although those words lasted only a few seconds, your mind repeats them hundreds of times. A plan does not work out, and instead of accepting what has happened and asking what can be learned, the mind begins arguing with reality itself. It says, "This should not have happened. They should not have treated me this way. Life should have been easier. I should have made a different choice." The event ends, but the internal argument never does. This is where suffering quietly grows. The monk understands something that changes the entire direction of life. He knows that pain is often unavoidable, but resistance is almost always optional. Pain arrives because life is constantly changing. Resistance arrives because the ego demands that life should have happened differently. The moment you stop arguing with what already exists, an enormous amount of energy returns to you. That energy can now be used to heal, to grow, to think clearly, to act wisely, and to continue walking forward instead of standing still in yesterday's disappointment. Imagine standing in the middle of a powerful river. If you spend all your strength trying to stop the current with your bare hands, you will become exhausted long before the river changes direction. The river does not hate you. It is simply flowing according to its nature. Life is the same. Time moves, seasons change, people enter and leave, success rises and falls, youth becomes old age, health sometimes becomes illness. Nothing in existence promises to remain exactly as it is today, yet the human mind constantly demands permanence from a world that was created to change. This impossible demand becomes the beginning of endless frustration. The monk does not waste his life demanding that the river stop flowing. Instead, he learns how to move with wisdom inside the current. He understands that acceptance is not surrender. Acceptance is seeing reality exactly as it is before deciding what the wisest action should be. Many people confuse acceptance with giving up. They believe that accepting reality means becoming passive, weak, or hopeless. But nothing could be further from the truth. Acceptance is actually the first act of courage because it requires you to stop hiding from the truth. Only when you clearly see reality can you respond intelligently. A person who refuses to accept reality can never truly solve it because they are fighting an illusion instead of facing the truth. Think about how much suffering is created simply because people cannot accept that they cannot control another human being. They spend years trying to force someone to love them, respect them, understand them, change their behavior, appreciate their sacrifices, or become the person they wish they were. Every failed attempt creates more frustration because they are trying to command something that has never belonged to them. The monk understands that every human being walks according to the level of awareness they have reached. You cannot force wisdom into someone who is committed to ignorance. You cannot force honesty into someone who benefits from deception. You cannot force loyalty into someone who has never learned commitment. Trying to control another person's heart is like trying to hold the wind inside your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. This is why the monk places almost all of his attention on the only territory he truly owns, his own mind. He cannot control what another person says, but he can control whether those words continue living inside him. He cannot control whether someone rejects him, but he can control whether rejection becomes his identity. He cannot control the weather, but he can control the shelter he builds within himself. He cannot control the arrival of difficult seasons, but he can prepare his spirit before they arrive. This is the beginning of real freedom. The moment your attention leaves what you cannot control and returns to what you can, your mind immediately becomes lighter. Most people also fight uncertainty because they believe certainty creates safety. They want guarantees before taking action. They want proof before trusting. They want answers before beginning. They want tomorrow to reveal itself before they are willing to move today. But life has never worked this way. The future has always remained hidden because uncertainty is one of the greatest teachers of faith, patience, and courage. The monk accepts uncertainty as part of existence. He plants the seed without demanding to see the harvest on the same day. He continues walking even when the path disappears into the mist because he knows that clarity often comes only after the next step has been taken. Notice how calm nature remains. The tree does not become anxious because winter is approaching. The flower does not become jealous because another flower blooms first. The moon does not compete with the sun. The ocean does not panic because the tide goes out, knowing it will return again. Everything in nature accepts its season without complaint. Only the human mind constantly argues with the season it has been given. It wants spring during winter, daylight during midnight, success without struggle, wisdom without patience, and peace without discipline. The monk observes nature because nature quietly teaches him that calmness grows where resistance ends. One of the deepest forms of resistance comes from the desire to rewrite the past. Many people live as though they are secretly negotiating with history. They replay old conversations hoping they will somehow change. They punish themselves for decisions they made with the limited awareness they had years ago. They carry guilt long after the lesson has already been learned. They ask endless questions that have no answers. What if I had chosen differently? What if I had stayed? What if I had left sooner? What if I had spoken? What if I had remained silent? These questions never produce peace because they are directed toward a place that no longer exists. The monk understands that yesterday can offer wisdom, but it cannot offer life. Life only exists where your feet are standing now. Calmness also requires letting go of the illusion that every uncomfortable feeling must immediately disappear. Many people panic the moment anxiety appears. They become angry because sadness has returned. They become afraid because uncertainty has entered their heart. They begin fighting the emotion itself instead of quietly observing it. This creates a second layer of suffering. Now they are not only experiencing sadness, they are also resisting sadness. They are not only experiencing fear, they are also fearing fear. The monk simply notices the emotion with compassion. He allows it to rise, he studies it, he learns from it, and then he allows it to leave in its own time. He knows that emotions are like clouds passing across the sky. They are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. The strongest people in the world are not those who never experience emotional storms. They are the ones who stop declaring war against every storm that appears. They understand that storms cleanse the air, strengthen the roots of great trees, and remind us which foundations were built with care. Difficult moments are not interruptions to your journey. They are part of the journey itself. Every challenge invites you to become a little more patient, a little more humble, a little more disciplined, and a little more aware than you were yesterday. There comes a moment on the path of every monk when he realizes that peace is not something he must chase. Peace is what naturally appears when he stops chasing everything that disturbs the mind. He no longer wastes energy controlling people who refuse to change. He no longer argues with yesterday. He no longer fears tomorrow before it arrives. He no longer demands certainty from an uncertain world. He no longer expects life to remove every obstacle before allowing him to become happy. Instead, he trains himself to carry stillness wherever he goes. His calmness is no longer borrowed from comfortable circumstances. It is created from disciplined awareness. Always remember this truth. The storm outside is rarely the greatest danger. The real danger is the storm you continue creating inside your own mind by resisting everything life has already placed before you. The day you stop fighting reality is the day your mind begins to breathe again. The day you stop demanding that life obey your expectations is the day wisdom quietly enters your heart. The day you stop chasing control over everything outside yourself is the day you discover the one thing that has always been worth mastering, your own mind. And when your mind finally learns to move with life, instead of endlessly struggling against it, calmness stops being something you experience only on good days. Calmness becomes the foundation upon which every part of your life is built. That is the moment when life may continue changing around you, but nothing can easily shake the peace you have patiently created within yourself. Lesson 3. The person who controls your attention controls your life. There is one lesson that every monk learns long before he masters silence, discipline, or meditation. And it is this: Your attention is the most valuable thing you possess, more valuable than money, because money can be earned again. More valuable than possessions, because possessions can be replaced. More valuable than time itself, because wherever your attention goes, your time quietly follows. And wherever your time goes, your life is slowly being built. This is why the greatest battle in the modern world is no longer for land, wealth, or power. The greatest battle is for your attention. Whoever controls your attention slowly begins to shape your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, your decisions, and eventually the person you become. Most people believe they are making their own choices, but if they look honestly at the way they spend each day, they will discover that much of their life is simply a reaction to whatever demands their attention the loudest. They wake up and immediately reach for a screen before they even greet their own mind with a moment of silence. Before the sun has fully risen, they have already invited hundreds of voices into their consciousness. They consume other people's opinions before forming their own. They absorb fear before taking their first peaceful breath. They compare their lives with strangers before remembering what they were grateful for yesterday. They begin the morning already mentally exhausted, not because life has become difficult, but because they have surrendered the first and most valuable moments of the day to distraction instead of awareness. The monk begins differently. Before the world speaks to him, he listens to his own breath. Before the noise of society enters his ears, he enters the quiet temple of his own awareness. He understands that the first conversation of the day should never be with the outside world. It should be with the mind that will carry him through every challenge, every conversation, every decision, and every unexpected storm that life may place before him. He knows that if he begins the morning in chaos, the chaos will quietly follow him into every part of his day. But if he begins with stillness, that stillness becomes the invisible foundation beneath every action he takes. Look carefully at how attention works. Whatever you repeatedly give your attention to becomes larger inside your mind. If you continually focus on fear, fear becomes stronger than reality. If you repeatedly replay painful memories, the past begins living more vividly than the present. If you constantly compare yourself with others, gratitude quietly disappears because comparison always whispers that what you already have is not enough. If your attention is endlessly scattered across 1,000 unnecessary distractions, your mind loses the ability to remain deeply present with anything meaningful. This is why so many people feel mentally exhausted while accomplishing very little. Their energy is not being used. It is being divided. Imagine trying to build a magnificent temple while every few seconds someone calls your name from a different direction. One person pulls you toward the east, another toward the west, another asks for your attention, another offers entertainment, another creates drama, another demands a reaction. You may be moving constantly, but the temple never gets built because your attention never remains in one place long enough to create something lasting. The human mind works exactly the same way. Greatness requires sustained attention. Wisdom requires sustained attention. Inner peace requires sustained attention. Without attention, even the greatest potential slowly disappears beneath endless distraction. This is why the monk protects his attention as carefully as a gardener protects fertile soil. He knows that whatever is planted there will eventually grow. If he allows anger to be planted every day, anger becomes a habit. If resentment is watered daily, bitterness grows deep roots. If gratitude is cultivated, joy quietly appears. If patience is practiced, calmness becomes natural. The garden of the mind never remains empty. Something is always growing. The only question is whether you are choosing what grows there, or whether the world is planting seeds without your permission. Many people believe that the greatest enemy of peace is difficult circumstances. The monk understands that the greatest enemy of peace is unconscious attention. A single negative thought can occupy the mind for hours if you continue feeding it. One criticism can become more powerful than 100 compliments because the mind continues returning to it. One painful memory can become more influential than years of beautiful experiences simply because you repeatedly invite it back. Attention is food. Whatever receives your attention receives your life force. Whatever receives your life force becomes stronger inside you. This is why the monk asks himself throughout the day, is what I am feeding worthy of becoming part of me? Think about how easily people surrender their attention. Someone posts an opinion online, and their entire emotional state changes. Someone speaks carelessly, and they replay the words for weeks. One unexpected problem appears, and suddenly they stop noticing the 100 blessings that still surround them. One fear about tomorrow steals the beauty of today. One distraction becomes 2, then 10, then hundreds, until years have passed and they wonder why they feel disconnected from themselves. It rarely happens all at once. It happens one unnoticed moment at a time. The monk understands that attention is not only about what you look at, it is about what you continue carrying after the moment has passed. Two people can experience the exact same insult. One hears it, smiles, learns what is useful, and continues walking. The other carries the insult in his mind for months, allowing it to shape every future conversation. The words lasted only seconds, but the attention given to them extended their life indefinitely. In this way, people often become prisoners, not because of what happened, but because of what they continue feeding with their attention. There is another danger hidden within scattered attention. When your attention is constantly pulled outward, you slowly lose the ability to hear your own inner wisdom. The voice of awareness becomes quieter beneath the endless noise of comparison, entertainment, fear, and distraction. Eventually, you no longer know what you truly think, because your mind has become an echo of everything it has consumed. The monk protects periods of silence not because he dislikes the world, but because silence allows him to hear the truth that cannot be heard while the mind is constantly occupied. In silence, he remembers who he is beneath his roles, beneath other people's expectations, beneath success and failure, beneath praise and criticism. One of the greatest misconceptions in modern life is the belief that being constantly busy means being productive. The monk knows there is a profound difference between movement and progress. A leaf blown by the wind is constantly moving, yet it has no direction. A mountain barely moves at all, yet it transforms the landscape for centuries. The untrained mind mistakes activity for purpose. It jumps from one task to another, one conversation to another, one notification to another, one worry to another, believing that motion alone creates meaning. The trained mind chooses depth over speed. It would rather give complete attention to one meaningful action than divide itself across 100 meaningless ones. This is why the monk performs even ordinary tasks with extraordinary awareness. When he drinks tea, he drinks tea. When he walks, he walks. When he listens, he truly listens. When he breathes, he knows he is breathing. This simplicity may appear insignificant, but it is actually one of the highest forms of discipline. A distracted person lives everywhere except the present moment. A mindful person discovers that the present moment contains everything necessary for peace. The more deeply you inhabit the present, the less power the past and future have over your emotions. Many people search for peace while continuing to consume chaos every day. They fill their minds with endless arguments, frightening predictions, unnecessary comparisons, and emotional noise, then wonder why calmness feels impossible to find. This is like planting thorns in a garden and expecting roses to grow. The mind faithfully becomes whatever it repeatedly consumes. If you wish to create peace within yourself, you must become extremely selective about what enters your mind. Not every conversation deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your curiosity. Not every piece of information deserves a place inside your consciousness. Wisdom often grows more through what you refuse to consume than through what you choose to learn. The monk also understands that attention is the purest expression of love. Whatever you continually attend to becomes your teacher. If you attend to wisdom, wisdom shapes you. If you attend to discipline, discipline transforms you. If you attend to gratitude, gratitude changes the way you see the world. But if you attend only to fear, resentment, gossip, distraction, and endless comparison, those become your silent teachers instead. Every day your attention is quietly deciding who you are becoming. There will always be voices competing for your focus. The world profits from a distracted mind, because a distracted mind is easy to influence, easy to manipulate, and easy to exhaust. A calm mind is different. A calm mind chooses deliberately. It decides what deserves energy and what deserves silence. It understands that saying yes to everything is the fastest way to lose yourself. Every unnecessary reaction is a hidden cost. Every pointless argument steals time that could have been invested in becoming wiser. Every hour spent feeding fear is an hour taken away from building courage. This is why the monk protects his attention more fiercely than his possessions. If someone steals his money, he may earn it again. If someone damages his reputation, time may restore it. But if he allows the world to steal his attention every day, it quietly steals his life one moment at a time. Attention is the doorway through which every habit enters, every belief grows, every emotion strengthens, and every destiny is formed. So ask yourself honestly, who is controlling your attention today? Is it your highest purpose or your strongest distraction? Is it your deepest values or your loudest fears? Is it wisdom or endless noise? The answer to that question is also the answer to where your life is heading. Remember this always. The calmest person is not the one who lives in the quietest place. The calmest person is the one who has learned to guard the gates of the mind so carefully that only thoughts, words, and influences worthy of peace are allowed to enter. The day you become the guardian of your own attention is the day you stop being carried by the world and begin walking your own path with clarity, purpose, and an unshakable inner calm. Lesson 4. Stop chasing peace. Become the person peace follows. One of the greatest misunderstandings in life is the belief that peace is something waiting for you somewhere outside yourself. People spend years believing that if they could only find the perfect relationship, earn more money, move to a quieter place, leave their current job, gain more respect, or finally achieve their biggest dream, then peace would naturally arrive. They live as if calmness is a destination that exists at the end of success. But the monk smiles gently because he knows that this is one of the oldest illusions the human mind has ever believed. Peace has never belonged to places, possessions, or people. Peace has always belonged to the condition of the mind that experiences them. Look at how most people live. They tell themselves, when this problem is over, I will finally relax. Then that problem ends, but another immediately appears. They say, when I have more money, I will stop worrying. Yet as wealth increases, new fears about losing it quietly replace the old worries. They believe, when I find the right person, I will never feel lonely again. But when the relationship begins, insecurity often follows because they are carrying the same untrained mind into a different situation. They continue searching for peace in changing circumstances while ignoring the one place where peace is actually created. The disciplined mind. The monk understands a profound truth that changes the entire direction of his life. Wherever you go, your mind goes with you. If your mind is restless, you will carry restlessness into every city, every home, every relationship, every achievement, and every new beginning. If your mind is anxious, no amount of external comfort can permanently silence the inner noise. If your mind constantly compares itself to others, no achievement will ever feel complete because comparison always creates another mountain to climb. But if your mind becomes calm, disciplined, and deeply rooted, then even ordinary moments become extraordinary because your peace is no longer borrowed from the outside world. It begins flowing from within. Have you ever noticed how some people seem peaceful, even during the most difficult seasons of life? They lose opportunities, yet they remain composed. They face criticism, yet they continue walking quietly. They experience uncertainty, yet they do not allow panic to become their leader. Meanwhile, another person may have every comfort the world can offer and still feel constantly restless, constantly dissatisfied, constantly searching for something they cannot even describe. The difference is not their circumstances. The difference is the relationship they have built with their own mind. The monk never asks, how can I force life to become easier? Instead, he asks, how can I become the kind of person who remains steady, even when life becomes difficult? This single question transforms every challenge into an opportunity for inner growth. Instead of demanding that the world remove every obstacle, he strengthens the part of himself that walks through obstacles without losing awareness. Instead of waiting for the storm to disappear, he becomes the mountain that remains unmoved while the storm passes overhead. Think about a beautiful lake early in the morning. When the water is perfectly still, it reflects the mountains, the sky, and the rising sun with extraordinary clarity. But when the surface is constantly disturbed by strong winds, even the most beautiful landscape becomes impossible to see clearly. Your mind works exactly the same way. Wisdom is always present, but a restless mind cannot reflect it. Solutions often exist, but anxiety prevents you from seeing them. Opportunities appear, but fear keeps your eyes fixed on imagined dangers. The calmer the mind becomes, the clearer life begins to appear. One of the greatest thieves of peace is the endless desire for more. The mind constantly whispers, "This is not enough." It tells you that someone else is happier, richer, stronger, wiser, or more successful. It compares your private struggles with someone else's public victories. It convinces you that fulfillment always exists one step beyond your current reality. This voice never becomes satisfied because its purpose is not gratitude. Its purpose is endless pursuit. The monk recognizes this voice immediately. Instead of obeying it, he quietly returns his attention to the present moment. He understands that ambition without awareness creates endless dissatisfaction, while gratitude creates a mind that is already rich before any external success arrives. The world encourages you to become louder so people will notice you. The monk teaches you to become deeper so life itself cannot shake you. The world tells you to chase recognition. The monk teaches you to build character. The world tells you to seek attention. The monk teaches you to protect attention. The world tells you to collect more possessions. The monk teaches you to remove unnecessary burdens until your spirit becomes light enough to experience genuine freedom. Every lesson points back to the same truth. What you become inside determines how you experience everything outside. Many people also make the mistake of believing that peace means the absence of difficulty. They imagine that a peaceful life is one where nothing unexpected ever happens, where every relationship remains harmonious, where every dream comes true exactly as planned, and where every day feels comfortable. But this kind of peace is fragile because it depends on perfect conditions that do not exist. The monk seeks a stronger kind of peace. He seeks the peace that remains when plans fail, when people disappoint him, when uncertainty appears, and when life asks him to walk through seasons he never would have chosen. This peace is not built upon comfort. It is built upon consciousness. There is a remarkable difference between temporary happiness and lasting calmness. Happiness often arrives because something pleasant happens. Calmness remains even when pleasant things disappear. Happiness rises and falls with circumstances. Calmness becomes the foundation beneath every circumstance. Happiness can be given to you by the world, but it can also be taken away. Calmness is cultivated through discipline, awareness, and repeated practice until it becomes part of your character. This is why the monk values calmness more than excitement. Excitement fades quickly. Calmness grows stronger with every challenge it survives. The monk also understands that chasing approval destroys peace more quickly than almost anything else. The moment your happiness depends on other people's opinions, your emotional life becomes unstable. Today someone praises you and you feel confident. Tomorrow someone criticizes you and you question your worth. One day people applaud your choices. The next day they misunderstand them. If your peace rises and falls with every opinion around you, then your inner world will never become stable. The monk chooses a different path. He welcomes wise advice, but he refuses to build his identity upon changing opinions. He allows truth to shape him, not applause. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when they realize that life itself has been giving them the wrong assignment. They believe the purpose was to create a perfect life. The monk discovers that the real purpose is to create a stable mind, capable of meeting any life. This realization changes everything. Suddenly failure becomes a teacher instead of an enemy. Delay becomes preparation instead of punishment. Silence becomes nourishment instead of loneliness. Solitude becomes a sanctuary instead of something to fear. Every experience becomes useful because every experience becomes another opportunity to strengthen awareness. Notice how nature never chases what it already possesses. The sun does not compete with the moon. The tree does not envy the river. The mountain does not wish to become the ocean. Everything fulfills its own purpose without comparing itself to another form of life. Only the human mind constantly abandons its own path while chasing someone else's. The monk returns again and again to nature because nature quietly reminds him that peace grows wherever comparison ends. The moment you stop measuring your journey against everyone else's, you recover an incredible amount of energy that can finally be invested in your own growth. There will always be voices telling you that you need more before you can finally rest. More success, more recognition, more certainty, more possessions, more security, more admiration. But the monk gently asks a different question. If your mind cannot rest now, what makes you believe it will suddenly know how to rest after acquiring everything it currently desires? The habits you practice today become the life you experience tomorrow. If you practice restlessness today, success will only make you a more successful, restless person. If you practice calmness today, success becomes something you enjoy instead of something you desperately depend upon. This is why the monk trains himself every morning before the world begins making demands upon his attention. He sits in silence, not to escape life, but to remember the place within himself that life cannot easily disturb. He breathes deeply, not because breathing solves every problem, but because breathing reminds him that peace begins before solutions appear. He observes his thoughts without immediately believing them, because he knows that the mind often creates storms that reality never intended to produce. Day after day, this quiet practice slowly transforms his entire way of living. He no longer searches for calmness, because calmness has become part of who he is. One day, people begin asking him the secret. They wonder why he remains composed while everyone else becomes overwhelmed. They ask how he stays patient under pressure, kind during conflict, and steady during uncertainty. They assume he must have discovered some hidden technique. But the truth is much simpler. He stopped chasing peace and began becoming the kind of person peace naturally follows. This is the invitation before you today. Stop waiting for the world to become quieter before you choose calmness. Stop believing that another achievement will finally silence the restless mind. Stop postponing peace until every problem has disappeared. Instead, begin training the only place where lasting peace has ever been created, your own mind. Build your awareness so deeply that external noise cannot easily disturb it. Build your discipline so consistently that temporary emotions no longer dictate your actions. Build your character so patiently that your calmness becomes stronger than your circumstances. Because the greatest victory is not reaching a place where life never becomes difficult. The greatest victory is becoming the kind of person whose inner peace remains so deeply rooted that even the strongest storms can no longer steal it. That is the path of the monk. That is the path of true calmness. And that is the moment when you stop chasing peace, because peace begins following you wherever you go. Lesson 5. Silence is the weapon of the strongest mind. If there is one lesson that separates the monk from the ordinary person, it is not found in physical strength, extraordinary intelligence, or years of meditation. It is found in the way he relates to silence. Most people fear silence because the moment the world becomes quiet, they are forced to meet the one person they have been avoiding their entire lives, themselves. They immediately reach for distraction, conversation, music, endless entertainment, social media, or meaningless noise because silence begins revealing everything they have buried beneath constant activity. The monk does exactly the opposite. He walks towards silence because he knows that everything the world is desperately searching for can only be discovered there. The modern world has trained people to believe that being constantly busy is a sign of importance. Every free moment must be filled. Every pause must be interrupted. Every quiet space must be occupied. The mind becomes addicted to movement because movement prevents it from facing its own condition. But the monk understands something extraordinary. A mind that cannot remain still for a few moments will never remain calm when life becomes truly difficult. If your peace disappears the moment external stimulation ends, then your peace never belonged to you, it belonged to your distractions. Look carefully at how people react when they are left alone with their thoughts. Within minutes, old memories begin to appear, regrets rise from the past, anxiety begins imagining the future. Unfinished conversations replay themselves over and over again. Hidden fears finally find enough space to speak. Most people mistake this experience as proof that silence is dangerous, when in reality silence is simply revealing what has been living inside them all along. The noise did not remove these things, it only covered them. The monk understands that healing begins not when uncomfortable thoughts disappear, but when you finally become courageous enough to sit with them without running away. Imagine entering a room that has remained dark for many years. Dust has quietly gathered in every corner. Cobwebs have spread unnoticed. The air feels heavy because no light has entered for a very long time. The solution is not to become angry at the darkness. The solution is to open the windows and allow light to enter. Silence works in the same way. It is the light that reveals the hidden corners of your own mind. At first, what you discover may be uncomfortable. You may see fears you never admitted existed. You may recognize resentment you thought had already disappeared. You may discover how much of your life has been controlled by habits you never consciously chose, but only what is seen can truly be transformed. This is why the monk never judges what appears in silence. He simply observes. If anger appears, he watches it without becoming it. If sadness rises, he allows it to speak without allowing it to define him. If fear enters his awareness, he studies it instead of obeying it. Every emotion becomes a teacher instead of a commander. Every thought becomes something to observe instead of something to immediately believe. Slowly, the mind begins to understand that not every visitor deserves to become a permanent resident. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that every thought is true simply because it appears inside their own mind. The monk smiles at this misunderstanding because he knows that the mind produces thoughts just as the sky produces clouds. Some thoughts are wise, some are foolish, some are based on reality, others are created entirely from fear, insecurity, habit, or imagination. If you believe every thought that enters your consciousness, you become a prisoner of your own mind. If you observe thoughts with awareness, you become their master. Think about how many lives have been changed by one thought that was never questioned. I am not good enough. People will reject me. It is too late. I will never change. Nothing good will happen to me. These thoughts often enter quietly, but through repetition they begin shaping identity. They influence decisions, relationships, opportunities, and entire futures. The monk interrupts this process. He does not ask whether the thought feels real. He asks whether the thought is useful, truthful, and worthy of becoming part of his character. This single habit protects him from countless forms of unnecessary suffering. Silence also teaches something that endless activity never can. It teaches patience. In the beginning, the untrained mind wants immediate results. It wants instant happiness, instant success, instant peace, instant certainty. It becomes frustrated when life refuses to move according to its timetable. But the monk sits quietly and watches a seed become a tree. A sunrise slowly replaces darkness, and seasons transform the landscape without ever rushing. Nature never hurries, yet everything arrives at the right moment. By observing this, the monk learns that forcing life often delays what patient awareness would naturally allow to unfold. Many people speak because they are uncomfortable with silence. They answer before listening completely. They interrupt before understanding. They defend themselves before the other person has even finished speaking. Their words become reactions instead of conscious choices. The monk values silence because silence creates space for wisdom. Before speaking, he asks himself, will these words create more peace than my silence? If the answer is no, he remains quiet. He understands that many arguments are not won by speaking more. They are dissolved by refusing to feed unnecessary conflict. This does not mean the monk never speaks. It means his words have weight because they are born from awareness rather than impulse. The loudest voice in the room is rarely the wisest. The person constantly proving their intelligence often understands the least. True wisdom is never in a hurry to announce itself. Like a deep river, it moves quietly while carrying tremendous strength beneath the surface. People who have trained their minds speak with intention because they know that words once released cannot be called back. Silence allows them to choose wisely instead of apologizing endlessly. There is another hidden gift inside silence that few people ever discover. Silence reveals what truly matters. When distractions disappear, many of the things that once seemed urgent suddenly lose their importance. The argument that felt impossible to forgive becomes smaller. The approval you desperately wanted begins to feel unnecessary. The comparison that stole your confidence starts looking meaningless. In silence, your priorities become clear because the voice of the ego grows quieter while the voice of wisdom grows stronger. The world teaches you to respond immediately. Messages must be answered instantly. Opinions must be expressed instantly. Decisions must be made instantly. Everything becomes urgent. But urgency is often the enemy of wisdom. The monk understands that life rarely rewards impulsive reactions. Instead, it rewards clear perception. He allows important decisions to breathe. He gives emotions time to settle before acting. He knows that many mistakes are avoided simply because he was willing to wait while everyone else rushed. Think about a lake after a violent storm. The water remains disturbed for some time, even after the wind has stopped. If you try to see your reflection immediately, the surface is too restless. But if you simply wait without disturbing it further, the water naturally becomes still. The human mind works exactly the same way. After emotional storms, do not demand immediate clarity. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, allow the mind to settle. Wisdom often arrives not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped interrupting it with endless noise. Many people ask why monks appear so peaceful. They imagine there must be some secret hidden inside ancient teachings. The secret is much simpler than they expect. The monk spends more time listening than speaking, more time observing than reacting, more time understanding than judging, more time strengthening the inner world than chasing the outer one. Day after day, these quiet choices transform the structure of his mind, until calmness becomes his natural state instead of a temporary emotion. You must also understand that silence is not only external. A person can sit alone in a quiet room while carrying tremendous noise inside. Endless worries, endless judgments, endless comparisons, endless imaginary conversations, endless fears about tomorrow. True silence begins when the mind no longer needs to argue with every thought that appears. It begins when awareness becomes stronger than mental noise. It begins when you stop trying to control every passing emotion and simply observe it with patience. This inner silence becomes a sanctuary that no circumstance can easily destroy. There will always be people who mistake your silence for weakness because they have never experienced its power. They expect anger because they understand anger. They expect arguments because they understand conflict. They expect emotional reactions because they know how to manipulate reactions. But when you respond with calmness instead of chaos, they become confused. They realize they can no longer control you through your emotions. This is one of the greatest forms of freedom a human being can experience. The world loses its power over the person whose inner silence is stronger than external noise. Do not be afraid of silence. Walk toward it. Sit with it. Allow it to reveal every hidden corner of your heart. Let it expose your fears without judging them. Let it uncover your strength without feeding your ego. Let it become the place where your mind slowly remembers what it feels like to exist without constant pressure, comparison, and distraction. Every moment spent in conscious silence is another step toward becoming the kind of person whose calmness cannot be purchased, manipulated, or stolen. Because in the end, the strongest mind is not the one that always has the perfect answer. The strongest mind is the one that has become so deeply rooted in silence that it no longer feels the need to react to everything the world places before it. That is why the monk treasures silence above almost everything else. For in silence he does not escape himself. He finally discovers himself. And once you discover the stillness that already exists within you, no amount of chaos outside you, will ever feel powerful enough to take it away. Lesson 6. The greatest victory is conquering yourself before you try to conquer the world. Every human being dreams of victory. Some want to conquer wealth, some want to conquer success, some want to conquer their fears, others want to conquer the opinions of people, difficult circumstances, or the obstacles standing between them and the life they desire. The world celebrates those who defeat their competitors, build great companies, win championships, and earn recognition. Their victories are visible, and because they are visible, people admire them. But the monk sees a completely different kind of victory. He understands that the greatest battle is not fought in public, and the greatest victory is never witnessed by a crowd. It happens in complete silence, inside the human mind, when a person finally learns to conquer himself. Think carefully about this. What is the value of conquering the world if you remain a prisoner of your own anger? What is the value of becoming wealthy if anxiety still steals your sleep every night? What is the value of earning respect from millions of people if you secretly cannot respect yourself? What is the value of building an impressive life if your happiness can still be destroyed by one careless sentence from another person? External victories may impress the world, but only inner victories transform the soul. The monk begins where most people finish. He does not ask, how can I change the world around me? He first asks, who must I become before I touch the world? This single question changes everything. It shifts the focus away from circumstances and toward character. Instead of demanding that people become kinder, he becomes more patient. Instead of demanding that life become easier, he becomes stronger. Instead of asking why the world is filled with chaos, he asks whether there is still chaos inside himself that requires discipline. He understands that every lasting change in the outer world begins with an invisible transformation within. Most people are constantly trying to win arguments while quietly losing themselves. They spend enormous amounts of energy proving they are right, defending their ego, protecting their image, and chasing recognition. Yet every night they lie awake with a restless mind that refuses to become still. They have conquered conversations but not their emotions. They have defeated opponents but not their pride. They have accumulated achievements but not peace. This is why the monk never measures success only by visible accomplishments. He measures it by the quality of his inner world. Can he remain humble when praised? Can he remain calm when criticized? Can he remain disciplined when comfort invites him to quit? Can he remain compassionate when others choose cruelty? These are the victories that truly shape a human being. One of the greatest enemies hidden inside the mind is the ego. The ego constantly whispers that you must always be recognized, always appreciated, always understood, always respected, always praised, always victorious. It fears being ignored more than it fears losing itself. It seeks importance in every conversation and validation in every interaction. The monk watches the ego carefully because he knows it often disguises itself as confidence. Real confidence does not need to prove itself. The ego does. Real confidence remains silent because it knows its value. The ego speaks endlessly because it secretly doubts its own worth. Notice how easily the ego becomes offended. One person disagrees with you, and suddenly your peace disappears. Someone receives the opportunity you wanted, and comparison quietly enters your heart. Another person succeeds, and instead of feeling inspired, jealousy begins growing beneath the surface. The ego turns another person's blessing into your own suffering. It convinces you that life is a competition instead of a journey. The monk refuses to obey this voice because he understands that another person's light never diminishes his own. A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. The sun never becomes weaker because the moon shines at night. Nature teaches abundance while the ego teaches scarcity. There comes a moment in every monk's training when he realizes that discipline is not about controlling life. It is about controlling himself. Anyone can wake up early when they feel motivated. Anyone can remain calm when everything is going well. Anyone can speak kindly when everyone is treating them with respect. But true discipline begins when emotions move in one direction and wisdom chooses another. It begins when your body wants comfort, but your purpose asks for effort. It begins when anger demands revenge, but awareness chooses silence. It begins when fear says stop, but courage quietly says one more step. Most people think discipline is a punishment. They imagine it as restriction, pressure, and constant struggle. The monk experiences discipline differently. For him, discipline is liberation. Without discipline, he becomes a servant of every passing emotion. Without discipline, every desire becomes a command. Without discipline, every distraction steals another piece of his future. Discipline frees him from becoming controlled by temporary impulses. Every act of discipline strengthens the part of him that chooses long-term peace over short-term comfort. Look at a river flowing through a valley. Without direction, water spreads everywhere and loses much of its strength. But when the river is guided between strong banks, it gains incredible power. It can shape mountains, carve valleys, and sustain entire forests. The human mind is exactly the same. Without discipline, your attention flows in every direction. A little fear here, a little distraction there, a little comparison, a little resentment, a little comfort. Nothing remains focused long enough to create greatness. Discipline gives direction to your mental energy. It gathers scattered thoughts into purposeful action. It transforms potential into reality. Many people ask why they cannot remain calm under pressure. The answer often has very little to do with the pressure itself. Pressure simply reveals what has been practiced every day. If you practice impatience, pressure exposes impatience. If you practice fear, pressure exposes fear. If you practice awareness, pressure reveals awareness. A musician performs beautifully during a concert because of thousands of invisible hours spent practicing alone. A monk remains calm during difficulty because he has already trained his mind through countless quiet moments that nobody else ever witnessed. The public sees the calmness, only the monk knows the private discipline that created it. There is another battle that every seeker must eventually face, and that battle is against comfort. Comfort is not always dangerous because it feels pleasant. It is dangerous because it slowly convinces you that growth can wait until tomorrow. It whispers that you deserve one more day without effort, one more excuse, one more delay, one more distraction. Day after day, these small compromises quietly become a lifestyle. The monk recognizes comfort as one of the greatest tests of character. He does not reject rest, but he refuses to let comfort become his master. He understands that temporary discomfort often creates lifelong freedom, while temporary comfort often creates lifelong regret. Imagine climbing a mountain. The higher you climb, the thinner the air becomes. Every step requires more effort than the last. There are moments when your body begs you to stop and return to the safety of lower ground. But if you continue climbing, the view becomes more extraordinary with every step. The monk sees personal growth in exactly the same way. Every level of consciousness demands that you leave behind another layer of fear, pride, attachment, distraction, and self-deception. The climb is difficult because transformation always requires letting go of the person you used to be. Many people secretly hope that one day they will wake up feeling permanently motivated. The monk knows that such a day rarely arrives. Motivation rises and falls like the weather. Some mornings it shines brightly. Other mornings it disappears behind heavy clouds. If your discipline depends upon motivation, your future depends upon changing emotions. The monk chooses something far more reliable. He builds habits. Habits continue even when emotions change. Habits continue when inspiration fades. Habits continue when life becomes difficult. This is why small daily actions are more powerful than occasional moments of intense enthusiasm. One disciplined action repeated every day eventually becomes a new identity. Another hidden enemy is the desire for immediate results. The modern mind wants everything quickly. Quick success, quick healing, quick peace, quick transformation. But nature refuses to hurry. A mighty oak begins as a tiny seed. A river shapes stone through patient persistence. Mountains are formed over countless years. The monk aligns himself with this rhythm. He understands that real transformation is invisible for a long time. Just because you cannot immediately see progress does not mean progress is not taking place. Every moment of awareness strengthens invisible roots beneath the surface. One day those roots become visible through unshakable character. There will be days when you feel like nothing is changing. Your mind will whisper that your practice is pointless. It will remind you of your old habits. It will tempt you to return to familiar patterns because they require less effort. This is the moment that separates ordinary people from those who become extraordinary. Ordinary people stop when results are invisible. The monk continues because he trusts the process more than his emotions. He knows that every day of quiet discipline is another stone placed beneath the foundation of an unbreakable life. Never compare your beginning with someone else's middle. Every monk was once a beginner, whose mind wandered during meditation, whose emotions reacted too quickly, whose patience disappeared under pressure, and whose discipline was tested by comfort. The difference is that he refused to stop practicing. He returned to awareness again and again until awareness became stronger than habit. He fell, but he returned. He became distracted, but he returned. He became impatient, but he returned. Every return strengthened him. Every return made the next return easier. This is the path of mastery. The world often believes victory belongs to those who stand above others. The monk knows that the highest victory belongs to those who stand above their former selves. Yesterday's fear no longer controls today's decisions. Yesterday's anger no longer chooses today's words. Yesterday's insecurity no longer determines today's confidence. Yesterday's distractions no longer steal today's purpose. This is the only comparison that matters. Every day ask yourself only one question. Am I becoming wiser than I was yesterday? If the answer is yes, then you are already walking the path of true victory. One day people will look at your calmness and call it natural. They will assume you were simply born this way. They will never see the thousands of private moments when you chose discipline over comfort, awareness over reaction, silence over argument, patience over frustration, and purpose over distraction. They will admire the tree without knowing how deeply the roots had to grow. They will respect your peace without understanding how many battles you fought inside yourself before that peace became permanent. Always remember this truth. The greatest enemy you will ever face is not standing somewhere outside you. It lives inside every moment you choose fear over courage, ego over humility, comfort over discipline, reaction over awareness, and distraction over purpose. But the greatest ally you will ever discover also lives inside you. It is the quiet awareness that patiently waits for you beneath every emotion, beneath every fear, beneath every distraction, reminding you that you have always possessed the power to choose differently. Conquer that part of yourself, and the world loses its power to control you, because the person who has mastered himself no longer needs to conquer anyone else. His greatest victory has already been won within. And once that inner victory is achieved, no external defeat can ever truly break him. Lesson 7. Become so calm that life cannot move you from your center. There is a level of calmness that most people never reach because they spend their whole lives waiting for the world to become peaceful before they begin training their own mind. They believe they will become calm when the pressure ends, when people treat them better, when the future becomes clear, when money becomes stable, when the past stops hurting, when every relationship becomes safe, and when every problem finally disappears. But the monk understands that if you wait for life to stop testing you before you become calm, you may wait your entire life and still never discover peace. Life is movement, life is change, life is uncertainty, life is loss and gain, praise and criticism, success and failure, arrival and departure. If your calmness depends on life becoming still, then your peace will always be temporary. The final lesson is this: do not train your mind only to feel calm when everything is easy. Train your mind to remain steady when everything around you is trying to pull you away from yourself. Anyone can feel peaceful in silence. Anyone can feel patient when nothing is delayed. Anyone can feel strong when nobody is testing them. Anyone can speak about wisdom when no one has offended them. But the real measure of your training is revealed when the situation becomes uncomfortable, when someone disrespects you, when uncertainty enters your future, when old pain returns without warning, when fear begins speaking loudly inside your chest, and when every part of the old you wants to react exactly the way it reacted before. This is where the monk is born, not in comfort but in pressure. Not in the moment when everything is beautiful, but in the moment when chaos appears and he refuses to become chaos. He does not become calm because he has escaped difficulty. He becomes calm because he has learned how to remain rooted while difficulty passes through his life. The world may shake the outer branches, but it cannot easily pull out the roots. That is the difference between someone who only looks peaceful and someone who has actually become peace. Think of a candle burning in a room. If the windows are open and the wind enters from every direction, the flame begins to shake. If the wind becomes stronger, the flame may disappear completely. This is how an untrained mind lives. Every opinion becomes wind. Every criticism becomes wind. Every delay becomes wind. Every fear becomes wind. Every memory becomes wind. Every rejection becomes wind. The flame of peace is always trembling because the mind has not learned how to protect it. But when the flame is placed inside a lantern, the wind may still blow, yet the flame remains alive. Training your mind is building that lantern around your inner peace. A calm mind does not mean life will never disturb you. It means disturbance no longer becomes your identity. You may feel anger, but anger does not become your master. You may feel sadness, but sadness does not become your home. You may feel fear, but fear does not become your direction. You may feel disappointment, but disappointment does not become a reason to destroy yourself. This is the maturity of the monk. He does not deny what he feels, but he refuses to become a servant of every feeling that appears. Many people think calmness means doing nothing. They imagine that a calm person is passive, weak, silent because he has no strength, peaceful because he is afraid of conflict. But true calmness is not weakness. True calmness is controlled power. It is the sword that remains in its sheath because wisdom has not asked it to move. It is the thunder that chooses silence because noise is not needed. It is strength that no longer needs to prove itself through reaction. The person who must always react is not powerful. He is controlled. The person who can choose when to speak, when to move, when to stay silent, when to walk away, and when to stand firm, has discovered a deeper strength. This is why the calm person becomes dangerous to chaos. Chaos depends on your reaction. Manipulative people depend on your reaction. Fear depends on your reaction. Anger depends on your reaction. The past depends on your reaction. When you stop reacting unconsciously, these things lose their power over you. They may still knock on the door of your mind, but they can no longer enter without permission. This is not emotional coldness. This is spiritual discipline. This is the moment you become the guardian of your own inner world. Every difficult situation is asking you one question. Who is in control here? The situation or your awareness? When someone insults you, the question appears. When someone ignores you, the question appears. When life delays your dream, the question appears. When fear tells you to quit, the question appears. When the past tries to pull you backward, the question appears. When anger offers you the temporary pleasure of revenge, the question appears. Every test is not only a problem, it is a mirror. It shows you whether your mind is still being ruled by old patterns or whether a wiser self has begun to take command. The monk does not hate the test because he knows the test reveals the training. A peaceful day does not reveal patience. A comfortable path does not reveal discipline. A kind person does not reveal how deeply you have mastered forgiveness. A perfect plan does not reveal your trust. The test reveals everything. This is why difficult moments should not always be seen as punishment. Sometimes difficulty is the classroom where your strongest self is being formed. Sometimes the person who triggers your anger is showing you where your ego still needs training. Sometimes the delay that frustrates you is showing you where your patience is still weak. Sometimes the silence that makes you uncomfortable is showing you how much you still depend on outside noise to avoid meeting yourself. The untrained mind asks, why is this happening to me? The trained mind asks, what is this trying to awaken in me? that one change in question can change an entire life. When you see difficulty only as an enemy, you become bitter. When you see difficulty as training, you become stronger. When you see pain only as punishment, you collapse. When you see pain as a teacher, you begin to extract wisdom from the very thing that once wounded you. This is how the monk turns life into a path. Nothing is wasted. Every insult teaches restraint. Every loss teaches detachment. Every delay teaches patience. Every betrayal teaches discernment. Every failure teaches humility. Every lonely season teaches self-connection. Every storm teaches the strength of the roots. But to live this way, you must stop worshipping comfort. Comfort is not wrong, but comfort becomes dangerous when it becomes your master. A mind that only wants comfort will panic every time life becomes difficult. It will avoid every challenge, delay every responsibility, escape every uncomfortable truth, and call every discipline too hard. The monk understands that comfort can rest the body, but too much comfort weakens the will. This is why he willingly chooses small discomforts. He wakes when sleeping longer would be easier. He trains when laziness is inviting him to stop. He remains silent when ego wants to speak. He breathes when anger wants to explode. These small acts may look simple, but they are secretly building a mind that will not collapse when bigger storms arrive. The person who never trains in small storms will be destroyed by larger storms. If you cannot remain calm when someone speaks rudely, how will you remain calm when life truly tests your patience? If you cannot sit quietly for 10 minutes without distraction, how will you remain steady when uncertainty lasts for months? If you cannot keep one promise to yourself when no one is watching, how will you trust yourself when a major decision appears? Every small moment matters because every small moment is preparing you for something larger. The monk does not ignore small training because he knows that destiny often depends on habits built in silence. There is also a deeper calmness that comes from accepting impermanence. Everything changes. The people who praise you today may criticize you tomorrow. The doors that are open today may close tomorrow. The pain that feels permanent today may become wisdom tomorrow. The success that excites you today may become ordinary tomorrow. The body changes, relationships change, seasons change, desires change, emotions change. The person who cannot accept change will suffer endlessly because he is trying to hold water in his hands. The monk does not cling to every passing form. He appreciates what is present, learns from what leaves, and remains rooted in the awareness that life is always moving. When you understand impermanence, you stop breaking every time something changes. You stop treating every ending as the end of your life. You stop believing every loss is proof that your future is empty. You stop holding people so tightly that love becomes fear. You stop holding success so tightly that achievement becomes anxiety. You stop holding pain so tightly that suffering becomes identity. You begin to move through life with open hands. You receive what comes with gratitude. You release what leaves with wisdom. You continue walking because your peace is no longer tied to making everything stay exactly the same. This does not mean you do not care. It means you care with awareness instead of attachment. You love without trying to own. You work without destroying yourself for outcomes. You dream without allowing the dream to become your entire identity. You give your best effort without making your worth depend on the result. This is the calmness of the monk. He is fully present but not imprisoned. He is deeply committed but not desperate. He is open to life but not controlled by every change life brings. A calm person also understands that not every battle deserves participation. The world will constantly invite you into unnecessary conflict. People will misunderstand you and wait for your reaction. Ego will tell you to defend yourself immediately. Pride will tell you to prove your worth. Anger will tell you to speak harshly so they feel what you felt. But wisdom will quietly ask, is this worth my peace? That question is powerful. Many battles are not tests of courage. They are traps for your attention. Many arguments are not opportunities for truth. They are invitations to lower your energy. Many reactions do not protect your dignity. They only reveal that someone else can still control your inner state. The monk chooses his battles carefully because he knows his energy is sacred. He does not spend his life proving himself to every person who doubts him. He does not answer every insult. He does not chase every explanation. He does not turn every misunderstanding into a courtroom. He understands that some people are not seeking truth. They are seeking access to your reaction. When you give them that reaction, they win your attention, your peace, and your time. When you remain calm, you keep ownership of yourself. There is a beautiful freedom that comes when you no longer need to respond to everything. You begin to walk lighter. You stop carrying conversations that do not deserve space in your mind. You stop giving people free rooms inside your head. You stop allowing temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. You stop confusing urgency with importance. The mind becomes quieter because it no longer feels responsible for controlling every perception, fixing every opinion, explaining every silence, or correcting every false story. You simply live with integrity, and you let your life speak slowly. This kind of calmness also makes your decisions stronger. A disturbed mind makes decisions from fear, anger, loneliness, pride, and panic. A calm mind makes decisions from clarity. Many people destroy relationships in one angry moment. Many people abandon dreams during one season of discouragement. Many people speak words they regret because they could not wait for emotion to pass. Many people return to toxic situations because loneliness temporarily felt louder than self-respect. The monk waits until the water is still before he looks for reflection. He knows that when the mind is burning, it cannot see clearly. So he breathes, he observes, he gives the emotion time to lose its sharpest edge, then he chooses. This is not delay. This is wisdom. There is a difference between avoidance and conscious waiting. Avoidance runs away from responsibility. Conscious waiting allows clarity to arrive before action is taken. The monk does not postpone what must be done out of fear. He pauses so that what must be done can be done from truth rather than reaction. Sometimes calmness means speaking firmly. Sometimes calmness means walking away. Sometimes calmness means apologizing. Sometimes calmness means setting a boundary. Sometimes calmness means doing nothing until the right action becomes clear. The key is that the action comes from awareness, not emotional slavery. To become calm in every situation, you must build a daily practice of returning to yourself. You cannot wait until chaos appears and then suddenly expect the mind to obey you. The mind obeys what it has practiced. If it has practiced panic for years, it will panic naturally. If it has practiced reaction for years, it will react naturally. If it has practiced distraction for years, stillness will feel uncomfortable. But if you train it every day, even gently, it begins to change. Sit in silence, watch your breath, observe your thoughts. Practice patience in small delays. Practice kindness when irritation appears. Practice discipline when comfort calls. Practice letting go when the mind wants to cling. Every return builds strength. Do not become discouraged if calmness does not appear immediately. A wild horse does not become still in one moment. A restless mind does not become peaceful in one day. You have spent years training your mind to react, worry, compare, fear, and rush. Now you must patiently train it to observe, breathe, choose, release, and return. This requires compassion as much as discipline. Do not hate yourself when you fail. Return. Do not quit because you reacted once. Return. Do not say you are not made for peace because your mind became disturbed again. Return. The path of the monk is not perfection. It is the sacred ability to return again and again until returning becomes your nature. Eventually, something powerful begins to happen. The situations that once controlled you lose their grip. The words that once wounded you deeply no longer enter as far. The delays that once made you panic begin teaching patience. The silence that once felt lonely begins feeling peaceful. The people who once controlled your emotions no longer hold the same power. You still feel life, but life no longer throws you around like a leaf in the wind. You become rooted, you become clear, you become steady. You become someone who can stand in the middle of noise without becoming noise. This is the final stage of calmness, not escaping the world, not hiding from people, not pretending problems do not exist, but walking through life with such deep inner stability that the world can no longer easily decide who you become. You become calm not because life is gentle, but because your training is deep. You become peaceful not because people always understand you, but because you finally understand yourself. You become strong not because pain never touches you, but because pain no longer has permission to turn you into someone you are not. So remember this lesson whenever life becomes heavy. You are not here to be moved by every storm. You are here to become rooted enough to stand inside the storm without losing yourself. You are not here to obey every emotion. You are here to observe, understand, and choose wisely. You are not here to control every person, every outcome, and every change. You are here to master the one place where true freedom begins, your own mind. And when you become so calm that life cannot move you from your center, you will discover a peace that does not depend on perfect days, perfect people, or perfect circumstances. It will be a peace built through discipline, protected by awareness, strengthened by silence, and proven through every storm you survived without becoming the storm. That is the calmness of the monk. That is the power of the trained mind. That is the moment life can still test you, but it can no longer control you. Now listen carefully, because this teaching is not meant to stay only in your ears. It is meant to enter your daily life, your reactions, your silence, your choices, your patience, and the way you carry yourself when life becomes difficult. Train your mind to stay calm in every situation, because life will not always come to you gently. Sometimes it will come as pressure. Sometimes it will come as disrespect. Sometimes it will come as delay, rejection, uncertainty, betrayal, loneliness, failure, fear, or a memory from the past that suddenly returns and tries to steal your peace again. The world will test you in many forms, but every test will ask the same question: is your mind still controlled by what happens outside, or have you finally become strong within? The monk does not train because life is easy. He trains because life is unpredictable. He trains because people can change, plans can fail, doors can close, and storms can arrive without warning. He trains because he understands that the person who has no control over his mind will always be controlled by people, emotions, fear, anger, and circumstances. But the person who has trained his mind can walk through chaos without becoming chaos. Never forget this truth. Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is not fear. Calmness is not silence because you have nothing to say. Calmness is power that has learned discipline. Calmness is anger that did not become destruction. Calmness is pain that did not become bitterness. Calmness is fear that did not become surrender. Calmness is the moment you feel everything rising inside you, but you still choose awareness over reaction. From today, do not wait for the world to become peaceful before you become peaceful. Do not wait for people to change before you protect your energy. Do not wait for life to become perfect before you train your mind. Begin now, in the middle of your current situation, with the emotions you are carrying, with the pressure you are facing, with the wounds you are healing, and with the thoughts that are asking for your attention. When anger comes, breathe before you speak. When fear comes, observe before you obey. When pain comes, learn before you collapse. When people misunderstand you, remain steady before you explain. When the past calls your name, remember that not every memory deserves to become your home again. Your mind is like a temple. If you leave its gates open, the world will enter and place anything inside it. Fear will enter, comparison will enter, noise will enter, regret will enter, anger will enter. But when you become conscious, when you become disciplined, when you become the guardian of your own inner world, you begin choosing what is allowed to live there. You choose patience. You choose silence. You choose courage. You choose wisdom. You choose peace. And slowly, the same mind that once reacted to everything begins to observe everything. The same heart that once broke under every storm begins to stand like a mountain. The same person who once lost peace over every word, every delay, every rejection, and every painful memory begins to walk through life differently. You become slower but stronger, quieter but wiser, gentler but harder to break. This is the path of the monk, not a life without problems, not a heart without pain, not a journey without storms, but a mind so deeply trained that even when life becomes difficult, you do not abandon yourself. So carry this lesson with you. Practice it when someone tests your patience. Practice it when your plans are delayed. Practice it when your emotions become heavy. Practice it when your old self wants to return. Practice it when nobody is watching, because the calmness you build in private will protect you in public. One day, the same situations that once controlled you will no longer control you. The same words that once wounded you will no longer enter so deeply. The same memories that once broke your peace will become lessons instead of chains. The same storms that once made you collapse will reveal how strong your roots have become. That is when you will understand. Peace is not found by escaping life. Peace is found by training the mind that lives through life. So master your breath, protect your attention, strengthen your silence, discipline your reactions, guard your peace, return to yourself again and again, because when your mind becomes calm, life may still test you, but it can no longer control you. Train your mind, protect your peace, become still, become disciplined, become unbroken. And if this message reached a part of you that is ready to become calm in every situation, comment these words with full intention. I choose calm.